snow drifted like a heavy veil across the Cascade Range, swallowing trails and muffling every sound. Inside his grandfather's lodge, teenage Ethan Harper fed the fading coals, attuned to the blizzard's roar. The 17-year-old ridge dweller knew isolation intimately until a thin wail cut through the screaming gale. Guided by his lantern's beam through the whiteout, he found her. A woman crumpled beside the stream, half frozen, gripping a strange satchel. "Come in, quick," he murmured, lifting her to shelter. As Mira revived, heat stirred more than her limbs. Yet the tempest hid lethal secrets. Why had she truly boarded that mail wagon? What mystery did she guard that men would murder to claim? Before the peaks clear, blood may darken the drifts. Before we return, let us know where you're listening from. And if this tale moves you, stay subscribed. Tomorrow I've held back something truly gripping. Dawn's pale glow seeped weakly through ice-rimed panes as Ethan stoked the lodge's hearth. 3 splits ought to hold till midday, he reckoned. Winter had struck early this season, fiercer than the 5 preceding it. Solitude suited him fine. After 3 years alone on this ridge, quiet had become his truest ally. He ran his fingers over the carved elk on the mantel. Steady in whittling, steady in life, his grandfather used to say, steering his small hands across cedar with a jackknife polished smooth by generations. Nathan Harper had spoken little but taught volumes about enduring these heights. Ethan stepped to the cooking nook, a grand name for the corner, holding a black iron range and hand-hewn cedar cabinets. Breakfast was plain, coffee brewed dark enough to float a nail, elk jerky and dried meat from autumn's kill, the final jar of August's huckleberries. Through the window, he tracked snow piling against the tool shed. 3 feet already, more bruised clouds massing above the crest. The shortwave hissed with static before a voice punched through. Major storm advisory continues for Briarwood County. Anticipate another 18 to 24 inches in the next 48 hours. All high passes closed to traffic. Ethan snorted. Closed to traffic. As though anyone from town risked the climb to Sentinel's Crest in winter. The closest neighbor lay 12 miles down a hairpin track, and grizzled Walt Grayson hadn't poked out since September. At 17 going on 40, Ethan's mirror in the tin basin revealed a face etched by wind and sun, beard already threaded with silver, eyes aged by relentless seasons. Down in Pine Haven, they labeled him odd on his rare supply runs. The ridge recluse, they muttered. The kid who never left after his granddad passed. They weren't far off. After Nathan's death, Ethan had weighed rejoining the valley's bustle. But the notion of packed sidewalks and ceaseless noise set his teeth on edge. Up here, every creak carried weight. Every hush held meaning. Shadow stirred by the door, rising from the braided rug. The husky wolf cross had materialized on the porch as a starving whelped the winter after Nathan died, as if dispatched to keep Ethan from facing the mountains utterly alone. "All right, girl." Short patrol. Ethan shrugged into his grandfather's old buffalo coat, elbows threadbare, yet still the warmest garment he owned. Outside, the freeze struck like a hammer. He breathed out, watching vapor shatter and vanish in the gale. Shadow plunged through drifts chest deep, her dense fur shrugging off the cold. The drill never changed. Circle the clearing. Confirm the wood stack stayed tarped. Inspect the smoke shed where elk and deer hung curing in neat rows. Every motion honed by Nathan's calm lessons and Ethan's own bruising trials. The traps stood empty today. Nothing stirred in a blow like this. Not hare, lynx, nor mule deer. All burrowed deep, riding it out, same as him. Shadow halted abruptly, ears pinned toward the gorge. "What caught your nose, girl?" The dog rumbled low, a warning Ethan seldom heard save when cougars prowled too near the lodge. But this wasn't cougar weather. They'd be holed up miles east near the basalt bluffs. Then he caught it, thin, undeniable beneath the blizzard's shriek. A human cry, no mistake. No one with sense would be out on the ridge in this. Shadow barked once, sharp, and trotted toward the sound, then wheeled back, eyes fixed on Ethan. He wavered. The gale was thickening, sight shrinking to a dozen paces. Chasing a ghost voice could strand him forever. The lodge could vanish behind a single drift. Shadow, heel. In. The dog whined but followed, throwing one last look down slope. Back inside, Ethan hung the buffalo coat and fed the hearth another split. Shadow refused to settle, pacing from Ethan to the door, low whimpers rising. The cry returned, closer, unmistakably a person in agony. Ethan heard his grandfather's iron rule echo. We don't leave folks to the mountain. The heights are cruel enough without men adding to it. With a breath that clouded the pain, he snatched the coat again and the old glass lantern that had lit Nathan through 50 Ridge winters. Whoever was out there wouldn't last another hour. Looks like we're hosting, Shadow, he muttered, checking his belt knife and pocketing a signal flare. Let's play neighbor. The wind knifed through every seam. Ice grains lashed his face while Shadow plowed ahead, nose low, homing on cries that came weaker and farther apart. Hello, Ethan shouted, the gale gulping the word. Anyone? Only the storm answered. The cautious voice Nathan had trained in him begged retreat. The lantern barely through 10 feet. One misstep, and he could freeze a stone's throw from his own door. Plenty of Ridge men had. But Shadow pushed on, sure-footed. They dropped toward Raven Brook, summer trout pools now locked under ice and white. Ethan trusted the dog's nose over his eyes. The brook cut open suddenly, a black scar in the snow. There, slumped against a lightning-blasted fir, lay a shape half swallowed by drift. A woman. Ethan knelt, sweeping powder from a face already blue. Black hair iced her cheeks. Town coat, useless up here, soaked and stiff. One fist still clamped a canvas courier bag to her chest, knuckles white even in collapse. Mississippi, he pressed 2 fingers to her throat, pulse thready but there. Miss, you with me? Eyelids twitched, no more. A faint moan, lips edging toward frostbite. No time. He set the lantern down, unwound the red wool scarf, his grandmother's last gift before fever took her, and bound it snug around the woman's throat and mouth, tucking ends inside her ruined coat. I'm carrying you, he told the silence. Lodge is close. You'll be warm. He lifted. She weighed next to nothing. The bag stayed welded to her grip. He left it. Whatever was inside had outranked survival. Shadow led the retreat. Ethan picked each step, the woman limp across his arms. She stirred now and then, words lost to the wind. Once her eyes cracked open, dark, wild, terrified, then slid shut. Almost home, he promised, though the lodge stayed invisible in the wall of white. At last the lantern snagged on ice-glazed windows. Relief hit like hot coffee. They made it. Shadow lunged ahead, claws scrabbling the door. Inside, heat wrapped them like living arms. Ethan eased the woman onto his cot, the only real bed in the lodge, and coaxed the fire until flames licked high, throwing restless shadows over the hewn cedar walls. Only then did he study his uninvited guest. Mid-20s, maybe. Her garments screamed valley streets. A wool coat too thin for Ridge winters. Ankle boots more for sidewalks than scree. Leather gloves stitched for show instead of warmth. What business did someone like her have on Sentinel's crest in deep winter? Isolation had taught Ethan wariness, but Nathan's lessons cut deeper. Judge a soul by deeds, not doubts, the old man always said. This woman needed aid, story be damned. He tugged off her sodden boots and socks, wincing at toes gone chalky with frost nip. Coat next, then outer layers, eyes fixed on the floorboards to grant her what modesty the moment allowed. His grandmother's patchwork quilt, save for the cruelest nights, came last, tucked tight around her shivering frame. The courier bag never left her grip. She'd fight for it unconscious. While water heated for tea, Ethan weighed the days ahead. The storm showed no mercy. They'd be snowbound together, strangers, for a week at least. His gaze drifted to Nathan's rifle above the mantel, always loaded, always ready. Trust was a slow coin to earn and a quick one to lose on the ridge, where errors seldom granted do-overs. She moaned, turning toward the fire. The red scarf, his grandmother's last gift, stayed knotted at her throat, a slash of color against bloodless skin. Come in, quick, he murmured, repeating his trail-side words. "You're safe." The promise felt thin even as he spoke it. Dawn arrived gray and muffled, the blizzard unbowed. Ethan had not slept, trading shifts between feeding the hearth and watching her breathe. Color crept back in her cheeks, but fever locked her in restless dreams. No, the documents. Her fingers strangled the bag, even in sleep. Shadow lay sentinel beside the cot, head on paws, eyes never leaving the woman. The dog usually gave strangers wide berth, yet something in her had claimed protection. Ethan opened the dented tin his great-aunt had used for salves, one of the few relics Nathan brought from the lowlands. Inside, cloth packets of dried herbs waited, labels in spidery script. He chose feverfew for heat, white willow bark for ache, a pinch of peppermint to mask the bite. As the brew steeped, the lodge filled with sharp, green scent. Nathan had drilled the Ridge's pharmacy into him. "Town sawbones are for town folk," he'd grunt. "Up here the mountain grows its own medicine if you learn the names." The woman stirred, eyes cracked open as Ethan neared with the steaming mug. For a heartbeat, she stared at the log ceiling. Then panic flared. She shot upright, hand flying to her temple with a hiss. "Easy," Ethan said, holding back. "You're safe." Her gaze swept the room, hand-planed table, elk antlers over the door, fire snapping in Riverstone, before locking on him, wary, measuring. "Who are you?" City polish in every syllable. "Ethan Harper. My lodge. Found you half buried by Ravenbrook. Carried you in before the whiteout finished you." He nodded toward the window where snow still hammered down. "Your clothes are drying by the hearth. Had to get you out of the wet." He turned his eyes to the floorboards, praying she'd read need, not insult. "Spare shirts on the chair if you want it." Her free hand brushed the red scarf, still knotted at her throat. "Thank you." Ethan nodded and offered the mug. Her brew knocks the fever and the ache. She sniffed, wary, then sipped. "Mira," she said, deciding he wasn't the immediate danger. "What dragged you to Sentinel's Crest in dead winter, Mira?" "Not exactly peak season." Her spine straightened. "Traveling. Lost my party." "Some party? Leaving you in a whiteout." Defiance sparked. "Not their fault. The mail wagon hit trouble on the pass. I went for help, got spun around." Mail wagon. A handful still rattled these ridges in summer for the heritage crowd. None ran in winter. Any wagon would hole up at Harlan's Way Station 20 miles south, Ethan said, watching her. "They got a radio. Stores. Blankets." Mira sipped, buying time. "I don't know the country. How long till it lifts?" "Radio says 2, maybe 3 days. Trails stay dead a week after that." He fed the fire another split. "You're stuck." Panic flickered. "A week? I have to reach Pine Haven soon." Pine Haven's 40 miles across the range. Only way is on foot, and that's a grave. His flat tone jolted her. Even geared and trail-wise, winter crossings are stupid. Without, they're suicide. Silence. Her fingers traced something hard inside the courier bag. Shadow whined, nosed her knuckles. To Ethan's surprise, Mira scratched the dog's ears. Shadow leaned in, rumbling contentment. "She likes you," Ethan said. "Doesn't happen." A thin smile. "Dogs beat people." The smile died. "Harper." Ethan. "I'm grateful, but does anyone else know I'm here?" There it was. She wasn't running to Pine Haven. She was running from. Just me and Shadow. Nearest cabin's 12 miles downslope. No phone, just a short wave for weather. Relief loosened her shoulders. Good. Ethan let the silence settle. She was lying, parts at least, and whatever chased her made solitude a gift instead of cage. Outside, the wind rattled the panes like loose teeth. Inside, another storm gathered. 3 days slid by in the brittle rhythm of strangers locked in one room. Mira mended. Frost nip on toes and fingertips eased under Ethan's warm soaks and salves. She wore his spare flannel, sleeves rolled, rope belt, and kept the courier bag in arm's reach. Morning of the 4th day, Ethan rose before light, fed the embers, thumbed the old shortwave alive. The set, Nathan swore was Army surplus, coughed static, then spoke. Continuing coverage of the mail wagon incident near Sentinel's Crest. The Pinehaven Heritage Stage, reported missing 3 days ago, was located yesterday by county search and rescue. Sheriff Langford says signs point to robbery. Ethan glanced at Mira, still asleep on the cot, and eased the volume down. The driver was found dead at the scene, multiple gunshot wounds. 2 passengers have been identified among the deceased. A third, Miss Mira Delgado, remains missing. Sheriff Langford says Miss Delgado may hold key evidence about the attackers. Ethan's hand locked on the volume knob. Mira Delgado, his house guest, now had a surname and a spotlight. Anyone with information on Miss Delgado's location should contact the sheriff's office at once. In related news, the blizzard that stalled early searches is forecast to taper off by tomorrow night, enabling wider sweeps of the area. The announcer slid to crop reports. Ethan stayed frozen, mind racing. Mira had danced around the wagon story, but robbery and murder? Was she witness, survivor, or something else? How long have you known? Myra's voice cut the hush. She leaned in the doorway, swallowed by his oversized flannel, eyes sharp, sleepless. She'd heard every word. Just now, Ethan nodded at the short wave. They named you. Said robbery. Her shoulders dipped. They're calling it robbery? Complicated? She crossed to the window. The sky had lightened to pewter, snow falling in lazy clumps. Storm eases tomorrow night, they said. They'll come looking. Sheriff's boys first. A brittle laugh. Langford himself. Ethan fed the fire, letting silence do the asking. I wasn't booked on that wagon, Mira said at last. Last-minute swap. No one knew, but... She shook her head. Doesn't matter now. 3 dead matters, Ethan said, voice flat. Sheriff hunting you matters. To them. To me. You brought heat to my door. Steel flashed in her eyes. I didn't ask for rescue. No, but here we are. He spread his hands. Truth keeps us breathing. Mira studied him, then pulled a thick craft envelope from the courier bag. I'm a paralegal at Lang & Associates in Portland. 3 weeks ago, I was archiving a boundary dispute and found these misfiled. She slid out papers, deeds, wire transfers, letters on county letterhead. Ethan's reading was trail functional, but the numbers leapt off the page. County Judge Harrow and Sheriff Langford, she said. They target old claims, fake tax liens, auction the land for peanuts, flip it to timber or mining outfits for millions. Ethan whistled low. These ridges are stitched with family claims going back to the gold rush. Exactly. Absentee owners still paying taxes. Widows buried in paperwork. 30 parcels in 5 years. Shell companies everywhere. And you've got the receipts. She tapped the envelope. I was bound for the U.S. attorney in Pinehaven. The puzzle snapped together. So the robbery, execution. Her voice cracked. They must have learned the files were gone. The wagon was flagged down by men in sheriff's jackets. I knew Langford's voice. When the shooting started, she hugged herself. I crawled out a window and ran until the echoes stopped. Ethan took it in, the radio's words still crackling in his ears. If Mira spoke true, the very sheriff hunting her had staged the killings and would lead the sweep once the sky opened. These ridges raised me, Ethan said low. No one gets to steal them. Something eased in Myra's eyes, relief at being believed, or the simple mercy of shared weight. The short wave hissed in the corner, a freight tethered to a world that had just crashed closer than it had been in years. Someone's been here. Ethan stamped snow from his boots and set a single brass cartridge on the table. Northwood Stack, he added. Myra's hand flew to the courier bag. Storm still got teeth, but sight's better. Hard men could work the lower switchbacks now. Ethan rolled the casing between thumb and forefinger. .30-06. County issue. How do you know? Granddad wore the star before he came up here. Back when it still meant something. He pocketed the brass. 1 set of tracks. Scout. Fresh. Last 12 hours. Myra's fingers shook. They know I'm here. Not yet. They're sweeping every cabin, every lean-to. Standard grid. They'll circle back with numbers once the scout reports smoke or footprints. 5 days of tight quarters had sanded the edges off suspicion. Mira had laid out the full rot. Judge Harrow and Sheriff Langford cooking tax liens and fake violations to strip old claims. then flipping the land to timber barons and quarry outfits. 30 families gone in 5 years. How far to the next safe roof? Mira asked, already folding the spare flannel. Old Lookout Shack, 8 miles south. Ethan unrolled Nathan's map, tapped a tiny square inked in brown. For service only. Emergency cache, no trail marker. Can we make it today? Leave in the next hour. Snow's settling but waist deep. Slow miles. Mira nodded. Fear traded for resolve. You've done enough. I can. Not happening. Ethan's voice shut the door. Ridge eats the green. Besides, he worked the lever on Nathan's rifle, brass sliding home with a soft snick. This isn't just your fight anymore. Mira frowned. Meaning, Ethan tapped the map where the lodge Saturday, Harper Ground, 3 generations. Your papers list it for absentee seizure. Taxes paid, but no physical presence logged in 5 years. Granddad handled town runs. I don't. Her eyes widened. They'll claim abandonment. Only if the law's honest. He checked the old pocket watch. Nathan's still dead on. Essentials only. Food, water, 1 spare layer. Anything that names you stays. While Mira packed, Ethan moved like a man who drilled for fire. Extra rounds in the left pocket, storm matches in the right, jerky, hardtack, cheese, and oilcloth. First aid tin, pouch. He paused at the mantel, fingers brushing the carved elk. Books, tools, the table Nathan had planed by lantern light, everything that said family. If Langford's crew came while they were gone, they'd torch it to bury Myra's trail. The thought locked his jaw. This lodge was blood and memory. They'd have to burn more than wood to take it. He'd die before he let crooked badges burn it down. Ready, Mira said, swallowed in the warmest layers he could scrounge. His grandmother's old parka, double wool socks stuffed into boots 2 sizes too big. The red scarf still knotted tight. Ethan gave Shadow the silent commands Nathan had drilled into both of them. The dog would hole up in the root cellar. If strangers breached the lodge, she'd stay quiet. After 3 sunrises without Ethan, a tripcord would spring the latch and let her vanish into the timber. One more thing. He pried a floorboard under the cot and lifted out a compact .38. Granddad's hideout gun. You handle it. Mira took it like she'd been born to it. Dad made sure I could before the cancer took him. Ethan nodded, oddly steadied. We move as one. Quiet. My lead. He cracked the back door, scanned the widening sky. Storm's window is slamming. We vanish before they get eyes. They slipped into the muffled forest. Ethan paused once, memorizing the lodge's outline against the snow. Whether it waited for him depended on outrunning men who knew the country almost as well as he did. But they didn't know Nathan's ghost trails. And they didn't have a man fighting for every board his grandfather had planed. They ghosted between trees, following lines no map carried. 3 hours in, the only sounds were snow crunching under snowshoes and the soft huff of their breath. How far? Mira whispered, cheeks windburned. Ethan brushed a pine trunk, found a faint triple slash, Raven's foot. For miles. Dad's blazes off every chart. He planned for this. A thin grin cracked Ethan's beard. Not exactly. Just hated being followed after he quit the badge. Wanted paths that belonged only to us. He read the country the way others read books. A cairn tilted just so, a limb bent against the grain, bark scars that looked like lightning but spelled direction to Harper eyes. Stop. Ethan's fist shot up. Mira froze. Half a mile east, 3 specks crawled the ridge, Sheriff Brown against white. Grid search. Mira breathed, dropping behind a boulder. Ethan eased her deeper into spruce shadow. North-south sweep. They'll stick to the logging roads. We stay on the veins. They waited, statues, until the specks vanished over the spine. Only then did Ethan move, slower, lower. The land turned mean, knife-back ridges, ravines that swallowed sound. Rock chimneys perfect for ambush or escape. My legs are iron, Mira admitted at a water stop, voice thin but steady. You're holding, Ethan said, handing over jerky. Eat. She chewed, swallowed. How often did you and Nathan walk these? Every turn of the season. He quizzed me on every marker. One day, I won't be here to point, boy. Mira studied the endless white. He was a good father. The best. Ethan's words carried the hush of old grief. Taught me the only things that last. Mira watched him chew jerky, curiosity overtaking fatigue. Why did Nathan quit the badge? If it's all right to ask. Ethan stared at the snow-crusted ridge so long she thought the question would die unanswered. And he cinched his pack and stood. Langford came on the force. Granddad saw the rot start small. Tickets torn up for buddies, shakedowns masked as donations. Nathan refused. When he threatened to whistle, a patrol accident put him in the hospital for 6 weeks. I'm sorry. Instead of fighting City Hall, he walked. Brought me up here, far from men like Langford. Ethan scanned the tree line. Now I see he wasn't running. He was guarding what mattered. They pushed on. The grade sharpened. Mira slipped once on ice, but took Ethan's hand without protest. Strangers no longer. They moved like two parts of the same organism. Late light painted a high bench above a plunging valley. Trees thinned, sky opened. There, Ethan pointed to a low, dark shape tucked under an overhang, half swallowed by fur. Lookout shack. Dusk'll see us inside. Mira squinted. I'd have marched straight past. Pointed the thing. Service built it to disappear. Near the final drop, he found another blaze. A single, deep axe scar on an old-growth hemlock. Granddad's signature, he said, fingers brushing the cut. Means sanctuary. Safe felt like a borrowed word up here, but the mark steadied them both. The shack was smaller than the distance promised. One room of hand-hewn logs gone silver with age, stovepipe leaning like a drunk. Moss stitched the walls, saplings pried at the foundation. Not the Grand Hotel, Mira said as Ethan wrestled the padlock. Beats freezing. The lock gave with a shriek. Inside, dust danced in the last shaft of sun. A pot-belly stove, shelves of dented cans, a cot, a scarred desk, 2 chairs. Everything draped in spider silk and time. Ethan cleared the flue, laid kindling, coaxed flame. Mira prowled, wiping decades from surfaces. Look, she lifted a dull badge from the desk drawer. U.S. Forest Service. Before Langford's crowd started auctioning the land they were sworn to protect. Ethan turned the star in his palm. Nathan knew the ranger posted here, Jonah Reed. Solid man. Fought the first crooked permits 20 years back. What happened to him? Reassigned overnight. Granddad always figured he asked one too many questions about impact studies. Ethan set the badge on the desk like an offering. These ridges keep burying their guardians. Heat crept into the single room. They tallied what the years had left. Dented cans too risky, but vacuum-sealed rations still good. A footlocker coughed up treasures, storm-proof matches, gauze, a dented oil lamp, wool blankets that reeked of cedar shavings, yet held together. We're good for a couple days, Ethan said, setting water to boil on the revived stove. Storm's gone. They'll have blue sky to hunt. Mira laid the courier bag on the desk, papers fanning onto the lamp. 3 more parcels slated this month, she said, tapping red circles. Your lodge is one. Ethan's jaw flexed. They start on the edges, work inward. Fewer eyes, fewer rifles. She aligned the deeds with the neatness of a court clerk. Textbook predation. Pine Haven, 25 miles northwest. 40 by foot. Her shoulders sagged. Too far with Langford's net between. Ethan poured tea into tin cups. We need more than running. Silence settled, broken only by the stove's soft crackle. Outside, night draped the peaks in velvet quiet. The U.S. attorney I was bound for, Clara Donovan, has been chasing graft across 3 counties. These files give her the teeth. Trustworthy? Sent her own cousin away for 12 years last spring. Mira sipped. Getting to her is the trick. Ethan drifted to the window. Moonlight silvered the snow. Nothing moved. 10 miles north-northwest, there's a trapper's cabin. Belongs to Walt Grayson, ex-state trooper, quit 15 years back. Radio strong enough to raise Pine Haven. Hates Langford's guts. He turned. If we reach Walt, we might get word to Donovan without walking into crosshairs. Hope sparked in Myra's eyes. He'd help. Hard telling. Keeps to himself. But he honored the oath, and he honored Nathan. Mira slid the papers home. Worth the gamble. Route. Ethan scratched lines in the dust. Track Aspen Creek 7 miles. Swing west through Tanner's Notch. Rough ground, no patrol trails. Leave at first light. Whole day to beat dark. He fed the stove another split. Sleep. Tomorrow earns its keep. Mira took the cot. Ethan stayed by the glass, Forest Service badge cool in his palm. Moonlit ridges looked innocent, hiding the hunters who'd twisted protect and serve into take and profit. His thumb worried the motto, caring for the land and serving people. Some promises outlasted the metal they were stamped on. Dawn cracked sharp and cobalt over white pines. Ethan snapped awake, ridge mornings wired into his bones. No fog, no yawn. Mira breathed slow on the cot. While he boiled water for coffee, his boot nudged a tin wedged behind the stove. Inside, strike anywhere matches, nubs of pencil, a pocket knife with half a blade, and a warped photograph. For men in Forest Service green, arms slung across shoulders, grinning in front of this same shack. Nathan Harper, 30, beard still dark, eyes already crinkling the way Ethan saw in Stillwater. Jonah Reed beside him. Walt Grayson, ramrod straight even then. And the fourth, young, open-faced McPherson, before the badge turned sour. Who are they? Myra's voice, soft behind him. He handed her the photo, stirred the grounds. Dad, Reed, Walt, and the sheriff, 25 years younger. She studied it. They look like brothers. People change. She slid the picture back into the tin. Not always upward. They ate fast, daylight a double-edged gift. Mira packed, like she'd been born to it. Creek 7 miles, then Tanner's Notch. Water finds the easy way, Ethan said, thumbing rounds into the magazine. So do searchers. We leave the creek at the falls, go where boots don't. Your granddad taught evasion? Taught disappearing. Never thought I'd cash the lesson. They wiped the shack clean, no ash, no prints. The ridge keeps your secrets if you keep its rules, Nathan used to say. Aspen Creek ran silver under thin ice, swallowing sound. Ethan set a hard, steady pace. Mira matched it. Tell me about Walt, she said at a water break, breath fogging. Own code. Retired trooper. Dad's best friend up here. Hasn't spoken to county brass in 15 years. But will he help? Can't swear. Haven't knocked on his door in 2 winters. If he shuts it, we pivot. Walt's the short path, not the only one. Sun high, 5 miles behind them. Ethan's fist shot up. Mira dropped. Half a mile east, a single glint, sun on lens. Binoculars or scope. They crouched behind a wind-fallen hemlock, breath held. Ethan kept the glint pinned. 2 figures ghosted north along the spine, slow, deliberate. Searchers, he murmured. Not on us yet. Back to the shack. They're drifting the wrong way. Keeps eyes off Walt's. Myra's knuckles whitened on the courier bag. They're between us and the lodge now. Forward's the only door. He hauled her up. Passed before dark. Tanner's Notch earned its name. A knife cut between granite walls, single file. Wind screaming like a saw. Snow hissed off the rock and peppered their faces. How far? Mira shouted. 2 through the gut, 3 to Walt's. Ethan braced her across an ice lens slick as glass. The sun bled out early behind the peaks. Shadows swallowed the trail. We need cover soon, he said. Night walking here is suicide. They spilled onto a wind-scoured bench. Ethan's hand shot up. Mira froze. Ahead, under an overhang, a campfire breathed its last. Embers glowed. Smoke ribboned up. Fresh prints radiated, some west, some backtracking east. Ethan ghosted forward, rifle low. Coffee in a dented mug still steamed. Half a granola bar lay gnawed. Our old tops. 3 men. 2 kept west toward Walt. 1 double back. He fished a singed corner from the coals. Hand-sketched map, red X's on cleared grids, a circle around Walt's cabin, asterisk recheck. Priority asterisk. They've already tossed his place, Mira whispered, color draining. Question is why circle back? Ethan's eyes narrowed. New orders. Or they smelled something off. They're staging out of Walt's. The words hung heavy as fresh powder. Their lifeline had become a trap. What now? Myra's voice cracked with cold and fatigue. Ethan folded the scorched map against his chest. 1 mile north, Old Bear Blind. Roof, 3 walls, misery. We hole up, glass walls place at first light. See if he's prisoner or puppet. Then we choose. They scrubbed their tracks and vanished upslope. The blind was a splintered box perched in a spruce thicket. Night dropped the mercury hard. Frost glittered on the logs. Ethan woke before the stars faded. Mira slept curled against his shoulder, city polish scoured off. Only a woman left, breath soft, unguarded. He let the moment linger, then touched her sleeve. Time. They chewed the last of the jerky, washed it down with snow melt. Ethan sketched the play on the frozen dirt. Walt sits on the knob, clear sight from the east ridge. We go high, stay in the dark timber, count heads, look for cuffs or coffee cups. Then ghost. Dawn came pale and sharp. Old growth pillars soaked up sound. Needles cushioned every step. 2 miles felt like 10. At the creek, they filled bottles and froze. One man, black parka, no county patch, working a grid like he'd written a manual. Rifle slung, pistol low, eyes everywhere. Fed or contractor, Ethan breathed. Langford's gone shopping. The tracker quartered toward them. Retreat would leave a neon sign. Holding put them in the crosshairs. I'll pull him off. Ethan shoved his pack at Mira. Lightning split Ponderosa, top of the ridge. Move. Ethan, I am the woods. He was gone before the word finished. Mira swallowed panic and ghosted northwest, pine boughs brushing her cheeks. Ethan looped wide, belly crawled to a loaded widowmaker, and cut loose a dead limb. The crack and crash echoed like a bucking rut. The tracker snapped around, pistol half drawn, and stepped exactly where Ethan needed him. Root snare, ice-slick rock, gravity. One heartbeat he was upright, the next he was airborne. Skull met granite with a sound like splitting firewood. Stillness. Ethan rose, rifle leveled. The man lay crumpled, blood fanning crimson across the snow, chest rising shallow. Out cold, not dead. Ethan knelt, stripped the earpiece, the radio, the laminated ID. J. Rourke, contract recovery, DOJ liaison. Langford had called in ringers. Ethan dragged the body under a blowdown, scattered fresh powder over the red, and pocketed the radio. Static hissed, then a voice. Rourke, report. Jenkins is secure. Repeat, Jenkins is secure. Bring the woman alive. Ethan clicked the mic once, static only, then killed the power. He looked toward the ridge where Mira waited, the radio heavy in his glove. Plan just changed. Walt was alive, talking, and the net was tightening. He started uphill at a run, every footfall silent, the mountains suddenly louder than they'd ever been. Ethan knelt beside the sprawled contractor, pulse steady but lights out. The tumble had done the job better than any snare. Search turned up ugly. Encrypted radio, channels way outside county band, a Glock 19 with suppressor threads, and PVS, 14 night vision monocular. No badge, only a Velcro patch, PCG security. Mercs, Ethan muttered. Langford had gone full black budget. He left the man on his side, head wound bleeding but not arterial, and keyed the radio once for noise discipline. Mountain code, you don't finish a helpless enemy, even when he'd do it to you. At the lightning split Ponderosa, Myra's eyes widened at the goggles. County doesn't buy these. Langford's laundering funds through private muscle. More for Donovan, she said, if we live to deliver. They climbed the final spine, moving like smoke. Walt's cabin sat below, log fortress, tin roof, porch running the full circle. Smoke ribboned up. 3 rigs in the yard, Walt's battered Dodge, black Suburban, county cruiser. Command post, Ethan whispered. From Pine Shadow, they glassed the scene an hour solid. 5 operators total, 2 in Sheriff Brown, 3 in plain clothes that didn't hide the high and tight haircuts. No Walt. Inside, relocated, or worse, Mira said. Ethan's molars ground. Walt had carved Ethan's first whistle, taught him to read sign before he could spell. Workshop, he decided, nodding at the detached shed. Ham antenna sprouted from a peak. Radio's in there. 1 guard on the porch, rotating. We wait for dark. Use the NVEG. 12 hours, Mira hissed. They'll find the contractor by then. Daylight rush is a coffin. We take the night. They melted back into timber, radio spitting clipped codes. Asterisk grid 7 clear. Rourke unresponsive, tighten the box. Asterisk. Mid-afternoon, engines growled. Suburban and Cruiser rolled out, leaving the Dodge and one Sentinel pacing the porch with a carbine. Ethan checked the sun, 3 fingers above the ridge. Window just opened. One visible, maybe one inside. We go now. He racked the rifle. Mira checked the .38. Workshop door faces the woodline. I'll draw the guard. You goes to the antenna. 30 seconds inside. We're on the air or we're gone. She nodded, eyes steady. Clock starts when the guard turns. Ethan slipped the night vision into his pocket. Daylight useless, night priceless. They started down the slope, 2 shadows hunting the only frequency that might still save the mountains. They ghosted downslope, every footfall placed by Nathan's ghost. The sun bled orange across the snow, stretching shadows like camouflage. Front of the house, Ethan breathed. I'll pull the guard. You hit the shop, barricade, raised Pine Haven. Evidence first, a second. Myra's grip tightened on his sleeve. Don't miss the door. He was gone before she finished the sentence. She circled wide, boots silent on crusted snow. The distraction hit like a thunderclap. 3 sharp cracks. Then the generator behind the cabin erupted in a geyser of sparks and black smoke. The porch guard sprinted toward the blast, carbine up. Mira slipped inside the workshop. Tools hung in perfect rows, grease and pine scent thick. The ham rig sat dark at the bench. The door creaked behind her. She spun, .38 rising. Easy girl. Walt Grayson filled the frame, white beard, eyes like winter steel, his own Winchester loose but ready. Never liked iron pointed at me in my own damn shed. Mr. Grayson. Save it. Where's Harper's boy? Buying us time. We need the federal prosecutor in Pine Haven. Lives on the line. Walt shut the door, yanked a tarp off the bench. Beneath, a brass telegraph key wired to a car battery. Radios gutted. They're thorough, but they missed the antique. He tapped the key like an old friend. State Police Emergency Net. Still patched to the regional hub. You can send. Muscle memory. His knuckles hovered. Short burst. Name, proof, location, threat. Go. Mira Delgado. Documents prove Judge Harrow, Sheriff Langford, land fraud, murder. Stagecoach hit. Send help to Grayson cabin. Langford ordered killings. Walt's fingers danced. The door exploded inward. Ethan staggered through, blood sheeting from a scalp cut. They're converging. For trucks, maybe more. Found the contractor. He and Walt heaved the bench against the door. Walt never broke rhythm. Ethan pressed a rag to his head. How long till cavalry? If anyone still monitors Morse minutes. If not, we're the cavalry. Outside, engines growled closer, snow crunching under heavy boots. Walt sent the final dit, then looked up, eyes calm. Messages away. Now we hold the fort. Message away, Walt said at last. No telling who's still on the other end. Rigs older than the pines. It has to be enough, Mira answered, easing Ethan onto a stool. You're bleeding. Ricochet kiss. Looks worse than it feels. Ethan's gaze found Walt. Good to see you, old man. Wish it was over coffee, not cordite. Walt dug a battered first aid tin from drawer. Your granddad would have picked a quieter distraction than torching my generator. Worked with what the mountain gave me. Ethan's grin was thin but real. Walt handed Mira iodine and gauze. We've got minutes before they kick the door. Boots thudded outside, voices sharp. Grayson, open up, Sheriff's Department. Options, Ethan asked, wincing as Mira dabbed the cut. Walt's eyes swept the shop. Depends how well you remember poker nights. Standard layout. Ethan started. Visible layout, Walt corrected. He stepped to the tall tool chest, thumbed hidden latches. The whole cabinet pivoted on silent hinges, revealing a black throat in the floor. Moonshiner's bolt hole, Walt said, producing a flashlight. Quarter mile to the east ridge. Supplies cached at the far end. Mira stared. You're full of surprises. Mountains reward planners. He pressed the light into Ethan's hand. I'm staying. No, Ethan began. Old knees, new plan. I'll stall. Langford won't risk a retired trooper with friends in Salem. Walt pulled a waterproof tube from under the bench. Maps. Tunnels braid into old mine workings, North Valley if you need it. Pounding rattled the door. Hinges groaned. Mira took the tube. Thank you. Make Donovan worth the noise. Walt racked his Winchester. Now get. They dropped into the dark. Walt swung the cabinet shut, sealing them in. The passage swallowed sound. Flashlight carved a tunnel of damp stone, floor worn smooth by bootleggers long dead. Cold mineral air pressed close. Walt, Mira whispered. He'll talk circles around them till the cavalry shows. Too many eyes on him to vanish. Their footsteps echoed, then faded behind dripping walls and the weight of the mountain above. Myra's voice floated out of the dark after a quarter-mile of dripping silence. Ethan, what if the dots and dashes just vanished into the ether? No cavalry, no prosecutor? He stopped, turned the flashlight so the beam lit her face instead of the tunnel ahead. Then we finish the story ourselves. Get you and those papers to Pine Haven on foot if we have to. Dad always said the trail shows itself when you've got no choice. They moved on. The passage yawned into a cavern where the ceiling climbed out of sight, for tunnels branched like roots. Walt's maps, Ethan said, unscrewing the tube. These caves have sheltered deserters, bootleggers, and now us. Mira crouched, brushed dust. Fresh boot prints, 2 sets, Vibram soles, less than a day old, led into the leftmost passage. Company, she breathed. Ethan killed the light. Black pressed in, thick as water. They listened. Only drip, drip. 2 walkers, heavy, he whispered. Not Walt's tread. Mercs, maybe. He clicked the beam back on, low to the floor. The map showed the main exit east. The prints veered north. We take the road less traveled. They slipped into the right-hand tunnel, shoulders scraping stone. An hour of sideways, shuffling, and ducking brought them to a chamber where a thin stream gurgled along the wall. Ethan called a breather. Mira touched the bandage on his scalp. Still holding. Clotted. She unclasped the silver locket she'd worn since the blizzard. Inside, no photo, a plastic sleeve folded tight. She handed it over. Time you knew the rest. Ethan unfolded it under the light. Press credentials, Mira Delgado. Investigative reporter, Portland Sentinel. You're no paralegal. Was 3 years back. 8 months undercover on a 3-county graph series. She met his stare. The Sentinel has a drop in Pine Haven. My editor's waiting for the package. Why go physical? Email cloud. Chain of custody. Digital gets challenged. Paper with signatures, seals, and blood on it. That's bulletproof in court. Ethan handed the card back. So the stagecoach wasn't random. You were the courier. And the target. She tucked the locket away. Langford must have got wind the files were moving. He folded the map, eyes on the dark ahead. Then we deliver the story, one way or another. Metadata's a magician's trick, Mira said, patting the courier bag. Ink on paper, county seals, forged signatures, that's the real magic. Plus I needed face-to-face with the last victims before print. Your lodge was queued for next month's grab. Ethan's silence stretched, the flashlight carving hard shadows across his face. The shift was seismic, from rescuing a stranded witness to running shotgun for a calculated expose. Your piece, he said at last, lights the whole fuse. Every deed, every crooked judge. The Sentinel's legal team is locked and loaded. Once it hits newsstands, state and feds have to move. And the reversal's slow, messy, but real. Families get their land back. Something hardened behind Ethan's eyes. The same steel Nathan had shown the day he walked off the badge. Then the story hits the street, he said, folding the map with a snap. Tunnels dump us 5 miles from North Valley Road. From there we hijack wheels to Pine Haven. You're not mad I played you? Granddad said, judge after you understand. I get it. Truth just raised the stakes. He shouldered the pack. Let's deal. They started again and froze. Voices low, conversational, drifting through stone like smoke. They found the bolt hole, Mira breathed. Ethan killed the light, studied the map by feel. We burn trail now. No stops. They move fast, boots skimming stone. The voices stayed the same distance, neither gaining nor fading, a metronome of pursuit. They know the maze, Ethan whispered at the next fork. Pacing us. Hurting. Dead end or ambush. Both, probably. He traced a faint line on the map. 1890s mine workings, red skull and crossbones. Unstable. Roof's iffy. They'll expect us to avoid it. Risk versus certainty, Mira echoed. Ethan met her eyes in the dark. We take the gamble. He chose the narrow, forgotten shaft. Dust thick as flour, timbers sagging like old ribs. They crawled single file, packs scraping, breath loud in the choke. Behind them, the voices finally sharpened, surprise, then anger. The mountain groaned overhead, a warning older than any map. They slipped into a coffin-tight crawlway untouched by recent boots. Air turned chalky, tasting of rust and rot. Overhead, timber sagged like old teeth, green with fungus, groaning with every shift of the mountain. 20 minutes later, the passage spat them into a lantern-lit ghost town. Pickheads frozen mid-swing, or cart rails swallowed by scree, blast scars black on the walls. Pocket mine, Ethan said, brushing quartz dust from a vein no wider than his thumb. Bled out in '07. Mira drifted to a whipsawn table. A ledger lay open to the last entry. Asterisk 12 Oz cleaned. Vein pinched asterisk. Beside it, a wooden box with a T-handle, spring-loaded dynamo, the kind that kissed black powder goodbye. Still hot? She asked. Doubt it. Ethan knelt by stacked crates, pried one. Wax cylinders, red letters faded. Danger, dynamite. Store dry. Might sing, might sweat nitro and take our hands off. Voices sharpened behind them, curses, the clatter of gear. The hunters had sniffed the detour. Clock's dead, Ethan said. We plugged the throat or were boxed. Myra's eyes flicked to the plunger, the crates, the narrow choke point at the chamber mouth. Collapse the gate. Best case, we walk free. Worst, he let the mountain finish the sentence. She weighed it like a headline. Evidence dies with us. Story dies. Land dies. Do it. Ethan lifted 3 sticks. No weeping. No crystals. He wedged them into a ceiling fracture already spiderwebbed from a century of frost heave. Wires stripped from a rusted signal bell. Caps hammered from percussion primers in a forgotten toolbox. Crude, but current would flow. He paid out every inch of wire to a dogleg in the tunnel. Rock eats most of the overpressure. Eardrums and lungs. Maybe not. Mira pressed against the wall, satchel clutched like a child. Boots scraped closer, orders, the snick of safeties. Ethan's hand hovered over the T-handle. Fire in the hole. He drove the plunger home. He slammed the plunger home. A heartbeat of silence. Then the mountain answered with a roar that punched the air from their lungs. Stone screamed. Timbers snapped like matchsticks, and the tunnel behind them folded in on itself in a thunderous avalanche. Dust exploded outward, thick as smoke, swallowing the flashlight beam hole. Ethan yanked Mira deeper into the side passage, bandana clamped over his face. The ground bucked beneath them. Secondary collapses chased like artillery. Move! His voice was a rasp through grit. They staggered blind, beam cutting a tunnel through swirling chalk. Each rumble overhead felt like the ridge deciding whether to bury them. The old sticks had kept all their punch. When the air finally thinned, Ethan spun the light back. The choke point was gone, replaced by a wall of jagged boulders and splintered beams. But the ceiling ahead sagged, timbers leaning like drunks. Overkill, he coughed. Whole sections bleeding. Exit now. They climbed. The tunnel sloped up, lungs burning, map trembling in Ethan's fist. Mira grabbed his sleeve. Listen. Voices ahead, not behind. Low, clipped, confident. No way they looped that fast, Ethan whispered. Second team, Mira said. They herded us into a kill box. Ethan's beam found the map's hairline branch. Partial collapse, 1893. Service tunnel. Might be choked, might be salvation. They backtracked to the fissure, a ragged scar hidden by a fallen king post. Ethan wormed through first, boots scraping. The passage beyond was a coffin of stone, ceiling low enough to graze his hat. The light snagged on a rusted wire cage dangling from piton. Inside, dust, a yellowed feather, the ghost of a beak. "Canary post," Ethan said, voice soft. Bird quits singing, men run. Mira crawled in behind him. "Let's not join the choir." They inched forward on elbows and knees, the mountains squeezing tight, the voices ahead growing clearer with every scrape. The air sharpened with pine and cold as they wriggled out the fissure. Stars burned cold overhead. The eastern slope rolled away in black folds. No lights, no engines, no boots. 3 miles from Waltz, 8 to North Valley Road. Ethan murmured, reading the ridges like a map. Roads 20 to Pine Haven. Wheels first. Mira dusted grit from her sleeves. Then we walk till we steal something with 4. A single set of headlights crawled the service track, far below, slow, deliberate. The beam swept left, right, hunting. "Search pattern," Mira said. They knew we'd pop out somewhere. The truck stopped. Doors opened. For silhouettes spilled out, moving like they drilled it. One swept a spotlight upslope, stray of the cave mouth. Ethan yanked Mira behind a boulder. The light raked past, close enough to bleach the rock white. "Stolen cabin," he whispered. "Thompson's place. On the grab list. Perfect OP." A badge glinted as the leader pointed, asterisk their star. "Boxes closing," Ethan said. "Vehicles below, teams flanking." We picked the ground. He scanned. Cliffs above, open slope below, the knife-back ridge running east. Ridge spine to Ferguson Creek. 2 miles of rock they can't drive. Creek drops to Thompson's back 40. He's still fighting the seizure. Might have a truck, might have a fight. Mira clutched the satchel. We dictate the battlefield. They started lateral, boots silent on scree, the spotlight sweeping behind them like a prison beam. They ghosted along the ridge spine, boots skimming shale in the dark. Headlights below split, fanned out, trying to box the slope. An hour of lung-searing scramble dropped them into Ferguson Creek's dry gut. Ice crusted the trickle. The ravine swallowed sound and sight. "Thompson's fence at the bend," Ethan whispered, nodding at a sagging barbed wire line. "Vietnam vet. Doesn't spook. Will he shoot first? Only if we look like Langford's crew." They slipped under the wire. Dawn bled pale over the pines. The flashlights stayed dark. Crack. Splinters exploded from a lodgepole inches from Ethan's ear. Far enough. The voice cracked like the rifle. "Private land." Ethan raised empty hands. "Mr. Thompson, Ethan Harper. Nathan's grandson." Silence, thick as sap. Then a shape unfolded from a blind of pine boughs and camo tarp. Andrew Thompson, 70 hard, spine still, parade ground straight, scoped Remington steady. "Nathan's boy," he grunted, eyes raking Ethan, then Mira. "County's buzzing like a kicked hive. You the reason?" "Langford's land grabs, stagecoach massacre," Ethan said. "We've got the receipts." Thompson's gaze locked on Mira. "Delgado, Sentinel?" She lifted the satchel. "Everything, deeds, wire transfers, blood on the paper." Thompson's rifle dipped a fraction. "Been watching my gate 2 days. Radio lit up an hour ago. Asterisk priority target, eastern slope. Asterisk that'd be you. We need wheels to Pine Haven," Ethan said. "Checkpoints on every blacktop," Thompson replied. "But you're not alone." A second figure stepped from the treeline, 40s, trail gear, badge flashing under an open parka. "Deputy U.S. Marshal Daniel Reeves," he said, credentials catching first light. 3 months undercover on Thompson's back 40. Myra's reporter reflex kicked. "Convenient." "Calculated," Reeves corrected. "Your editor pinged the U.S. attorney 6 weeks ago. Asterisk Delgado en route. Hard copy. Stagecoach drop. Asterisk when the wagon went dark, we mobilized." Thompson nodded. "I vetted him through Lejeune buddies. He's legit." Reeves holstered the badge. "Plan's simple. Thompson's old logging road, unmapped, runs 12 miles to the county line. I've got a pickup stashed. We roll at dusk, lights off, hit Pine Haven after midnight." Ethan glanced at the ridge. Headlights still prowled the valley like wolves. "Clock's bleeding," he said. Reeves grinned without humor. "Then let's give Langford a story he can't bury." Reeves thumbed the sat phone alive. "Necessary," just went critical. 3 murdered, rogue sheriff, PMCs on domestic soil. Extract in 2 mics. Myra's fingers found Ethan's. And Ethan, full shield, Reeves said. Both of you. Every stolen acre reversed in federal court. Thompson's voice cut from the blind. 20 mics till Langford's dogs hit my fence. Ethan locked eyes with the marshal. If you're on the take, pull the trigger now. Otherwise, that story hits print. Reeves met the stare. I'm the hammer, not the nail. He spoke rapid coordinates into the phone. Mirror squeezed once. Asterisk, almost there asterisk. 6 months later. Spring muscled winter aside. Snow lingered only in north-facing pockets. Lupin and paintbrush stabbed through the duff. Ethan leaned on the new porch rail, coffee steaming, Shadow dozing at his boots. The cabin rose from the ashes stronger, wider windows, stone footings, a doorframe he'd planed himself. Gravel crunched. A Forest Service rig rolled in. Mira stepped out in trail jeans and city polish, package on her arm. Reporter on the dot. Ethan called, smile tugging his beard. Deadlines breed habits. She climbed the steps, took the offered mug like it was hers by right. They stood quiet, watching the ridge breathe green. Judge Harrow draws 15 next week, she said. Langford traded 20 for names. Every fraudulent deed voided. Original owners reclaiming at cost. She unwrapped the plastic. Portland Sentinel, banner headline. Asterisk asterisk exposed. Largest land heist in state history asterisk asterisk. Byline Mira Delgado. Our byline, she corrected. You'd have found another ridge runner. None who'd blow a tunnel and carry me out. He traced the fresh carving over the lintel. Harper 2026. Nathan would have liked the new glass, he said. Let's the light in. Myra's fingers brushed the letters. He didn't run. He just waited for the right fight. Ethan nodded. Turns out it found us. Below, an eagle banked over the valley, riding the thermals. Meadows stitched themselves new. Stay, he asked. Working a conservation series. Needs boots-on-ground research. Her smile answered before her words. Demanding sources. The best stories are. He raised his mug. To boundaries worth keeping. And the ones worth crossing. Sun climbed, warming the threshold between what was and what came next.